back to Native Strength. I'm your host, Hyapatia. Did you know that there are over 254 million people around the world suffering from depression? It's the most common complaint there is. Doctors, therapists, and drug companies have worked for decades to try to relieve the suffering. Many people say they feel much better with the help of pharmaceuticals and talk therapy. Some people say they feel better, but wouldn't necessarily say they're happy. And there are others for whom these remedies provide no relief at all. It's obvious to anyone who's watching the news or has very many friends that there are a lot of people who are still struggling. This is not a new phenomenon. People didn't simply start feeling depressed in the last couple hundred years. No, this has been going on since the beginning of time. The people of Turtle Island were well aware of all the different emotional conditions with which one could be afflicted, and they also noted that depression was by far the most common. There are many reasons people become depressed. Many of us suffer from low self-esteem. We feel we haven't lived up to our full potential or the expectations of others. We may not be following our sacred dream. We're pretending to be someone we really aren't. These reasons for depression come from within, but there are also external reasons. Circumstances beyond our control can derail our plans. People and events can force their will on us to the extent that we can't live our life the way we would like to. Obviously, this can be very depressing. And there's a Venn diagram where the two can overlap. When we have low self-esteem, we're more easily affected by the opinions of others. And when our choices in life are limited, it's very easy to have low self-esteem. All this can make depression a very complicated mess. Many of us have internal and external forces contributing to our depression. But there is also another possible component: our health. There are many conditions that can cause depression, even if we aren't suffering from any other symptoms or our condition has not yet been diagnosed. An underactive thyroid, for example, won't usually make your life too unbearable or give you obvious, clear-cut symptoms, but it can make you very depressed. And of course, if someone is suffering from a serious medical condition, that in and of itself can be depressing. That kind of thing can occupy one's day and make it very difficult to do much else other than simply try to stay alive. As you've probably heard me say before in my previous episodes, we make a plan for our life before we're born. This includes opportunities to learn all of the lessons we need to in this life to move on to the next, as well as ways to fulfill our sacred dream, our way to give back to the rest of the world. This sacred dream will bring us self-esteem and happiness. This principle is explained to our children with the medicine story Little Jumping Mouse. You can find it on my YouTube channel. We forget what we planned when we're on the other side just as soon as we draw our first breath. Rediscovering our sacred dream and learning all of the lessons we planned can be hard enough, but then we add others into the equation. These others may try to convince us that our sacred dream lies down another path, or that our plans are evil or sinister. Not only does this wreak havoc with our self-esteem, but it stunts our spiritual growth. Our image makers molded and sculpted us into the people they wanted us to become. Our parents, teachers, and religious leaders take it personally if we don't behave in the ways they dictate. We'll be shunned for daring to show our true self, And so we keep up a facade, a false personality to please others. This makes us feel unacceptable of love in our original form. If they knew who we really were, they would never accept us. So we cut away parts of ourself that are offensive to them. We allow ourselves to be sculpted into the form they have chosen for us. We model their behavior. We act like them and adapt to the mold that they have placed around us, into which we are to grow. Because all of this is so very painful, we armor ourselves. We block out the pain by pretending that we are the perfect person that our image makers want us to be. We even belittle others who display behavior that may have been deemed inappropriate in an effort to make ourselves feel more acceptable and authentic. When we become adults, we hear the voices of our image makers in our heads. They feed us full of guilt, blame, and shame to keep us following the path that they've chosen for us. These voices that put us down for our originality are called fear feeder voices. They hold us back from our sacred dream and happiness. Just like the name says, they feed on our fears. Our fears of not being liked by others, of not making our parents proud of us, and of not being respected by our peers feeds these voices. The more we listen to them, the stronger they become. These are often tapes recorded by our image makers about how we should behave. For example, perhaps we were told not to dress in a certain way so people won't get the wrong idea. These tapes usually originated way back with their own image makers, and it goes on and on. So we may say the same things to our children without even thinking about it. One day, our child may say, "Where did you get that idea?" And we may stop dead in our tracks, finally confronted with an age-old saying that we have to think over and defend. Our image makers underwent the same molding, sculpting, and armoring as children. So they suffer from the same inherent low self-esteem. They know they had to conform to fit in and be worthy of love. Now, the Mayans explored all of this in depth. There are specific steps to shattering the mirror of self-reflection and finding the true self that lies within. For these specific steps, check out my Native Strength episode, The Mirrors of Self-Reflection. Our children are seen as extensions of ourself. If our child misbehaves often at school, teachers will assume the parents are to blame. If a child excels and is in advanced placement classes, it's assumed that the parents did something right. This causes our parents to become very domineering and insistent that we follow the path that they have set out for us, because if we don't, their peers will see it as a reflection on them. When we can't be ourselves for fear of ridicule, and we can't follow our sacred dream because it's unacceptable to those we love, or we don't even know what it is, depression is the natural result. There's nothing wrong with us for feeling this way. Any normal person with these circumstances would feel depressed. We have low self-esteem because the only way to feel loved is to play a game, to pretend we're someone we're not. We may have to pretend to like a certain type of music, believe wholeheartedly in a particular religion, or to go along with a philosophy or ideology that actually causes us pain. No wonder we're depressed. And this puts most people on the circle of Fox's wheel, reacting to what everyone around us says and does in an effort to get our needs met and to feel worthy of love.
We haven't yet learned how to fulfill our need for love from within. We have what's known as the needy, wounded child syndrome. We feel as though we're being persecuted by circumstances or life or someone, and we need someone else to rescue us. We feel as though we can't do it on our own. We act like a needy, wounded child instead of an independent adult because we haven't yet learned a better way.
We're afraid to learn new ways because the image makers have assured us that their way is the only way, and to go against that would be to cut ourselves off from their love. Because we've learned to be afraid of the unknown and been told that the devil we know is better than the one we don't, we're afraid to seek out new ways of doing things. We're afraid to look at the world in a different way. Our perspective is limited to one direction instead of seeing the entire picture.
We've convinced ourselves that our image makers sculpted us into the best person we could possibly be. No further work is necessary. This gives us a false sense of freedom. Now we don't have to worry about learning or growing because we're fine just the way we are.
To make ourselves feel better, we can show others the error of their ways, how wrong they are to do whatever it is that brings them happiness. Our image makers have taught us that their way is wrong, and we validate ourselves and our upbringing by forcing our beliefs on others.
Of course, this really doesn't make us feel very happy at all. It only boosts our low self-esteem for a little while. Pretty soon, we'll have to find someone else to scold. When we're focused on the wrongs of someone else, we don't have to worry about the pain of not being true to ourselves. This gives us a false sense of freedom and a brief respite from our unhappiness.
Since we're walking a fine line between what the image makers have wanted us to be and the world we find ourselves living in, we may have to adapt a bit. We might reason with ourselves that this world is a bit different from the one our parents lived in, and so there are a few minor adjustments to be made. We decide to make our own rules.
When we make these new rules, our goal is to appease the voices inside our head that feed on our fears of not measuring up to our image makers. We're not really trying to make sense of the world. We're not trying to find solutions that work for everyone involved. No, we're just trying to appease the voices of our image makers and get along in society. You can see how this can lead to many problems.
Now, someone may have figured out a better way of living, but because it's new and not acceptable to our old image makers, we might turn our back on it. We might decide we can find a solution ourselves. We can find ourselves doing things the hard way instead of taking an obviously easier path. All of this culminates in our feeling like we are the underdog, a hero, working hard to keep the old ways alive and win the approval of our ancestors and image makers. We've fooled ourselves into believing we're on the good red road, fulfilling our sacred dream, when we haven't even begun to discover ourselves yet. And so the cycle starts again. In order to please those we care for, our image makers, we react to their actions. We have no pure actions or thoughts of our own, only those inspired by others with the sole purpose of pleasing them, so they will like us. We live only for their approval.
When we live for the approval of others, we don't really give ourselves an opportunity to find out who we truly are. We haven't taken the time to decide for ourselves what we like and admire in a person. Now, the only way off of this circle of foxes is to have a good, strong relationship with your inner personas, particularly your inner elders.
If you've been watching Native Strength, this will be familiar to you. When we talk with our inner elders, we get our self-esteem from within. We aren't relying on others to make us feel worthy. And this begins our dance with the coyotes. It's pretty much impossible to not be depressed when you're on the circle of foxes. But dancing with the coyotes is one of the biggest keys to ending depression caused by low self-esteem. Almost all medicine wheels start in the South, so the first thing we have to do is change our view of ourself. We may have thought of ourselves as a victim, a helpless soul fighting for survival. No, we are a survivor. We are not helpless. We are in complete and total control of our life. We may be in prison or in a war-torn country and not have the external freedom we need to follow our dream, but we can always control our mind.
The South always stands for childhood and emotions. So a big key to success in this direction is going to be connecting to our inner children and not looking at emotions as a sign of weakness. Instead, they're clues as to which direction we should go next on our path.
Our next step is to the Southwest, which always has to do with interpretations. Here on the Dance of Coyotes, it tells us that we have to be willing to learn. Once we explore new ways of doing things, we can interpret whether this way is something that will make our life easier and bring us more happiness, or if it's more suited for someone else's path. Being willing to look at new ways and connecting with our inner children to find joy gives a newfound sense of freedom. We aren't locked into doing things only to gain the approval of our image makers. We're now free to please ourselves. By the time we get to the West, the direction of the physical world and our body, we're noticing a big change in our demeanor. Our depression has lifted substantially. We're starting to feel in control of our own destiny and learning to love ourselves. We're free to follow our heart on our journey to happiness. Following our heart or our sacred dream puts us in alignment with sacred law. Now we're following the plans that we made for life before we were born. And because of this, things will start to fall into place much easier in life. Where we used to feel that if something could go wrong, it would, now we're trusting the universe to provide for us. And it comes through every time. This allows us to build good karma. We honor the children within us, and so it's second nature to honor the children in others. It's easier to look past the mistakes of our family, co-workers, and friends. This further contributes to our own good karma and sense of peace. Everything is falling into place now.
We've learned to go with the flow, to use positive energy. This means we'll be far more efficient than when we were struggling with negative energy. For a clearer understanding of what I mean by positive and negative energy in all of the 8 directions around the Wheel of Life, check out my first season of Native Strength. I discuss the Wheel of Life, which is the basic key for all of the medicine wheels on the Native Strength path.
When we use positive energy on our dance with the coyotes, we have timing on our side. And this allows us to be successful with minimal effort when we're aware and mindful of our actions. All of this allows us to fulfill our sacred dream, which brings us great joy. And our depression is now just a memory. Because we're on the path that we plan for all of our life, we're dancing our dream awake. We are productive in achieving our goals. Instead of spinning our wheels, worrying about what others think of us, and if we're good enough, we're pleasing ourselves. Low self-esteem holds us back tremendously. We can't please everyone, so don't worry about trying. Be concerned with pleasing yourself. By strengthening the connection to our inner personas, we can silence the fear feeders. When they're quiet, it's easier to get off the circle of foxes and begin our dance with the coyotes. This will ease just about any depression that's primarily internally driven, but there's one more thing that's integral for fighting this, and that's the steps to assuming self-authority. Until we go through these steps, we'll have a tendency to resort to the needy, wounded child behavior I've talked about before. Without these steps, our self-esteem won't be whole and healed.
Most people suffer from low self-esteem because they're focused on the approval of others. This makes them overly concerned with not appearing to make mistakes. Of course, we all make mistakes. Many natives believe that we're not ready to die until we're near perfection. And because of this, they embrace their mistakes. For example, you might see some beadwork with a plain background, maybe all white or all black, and in the middle will be one bead of an opposite color. This is a purposeful mistake to show everyone that we're not trying to be perfect. We know that we're not ready to compete with the Creator, and we're not ready to join the Great Spirit just yet.
So we have to be willing to fail in some things in life. The first step to assuming self-authority is experience comes from adversity. If everything always goes our way and we never fail, we won't learn anything. But when we fail, we learn, and hopefully we'll do a better job the next time as a result. We know that some of our little battles in life will be lost. When we lose with grace, we build our character. The more times we lose gracefully, the more we will refine our character. We're able to take constructive criticism without getting personally offended. At this point, we leave the circle of loss and enter the circle of winning. It's called that because we're winning in our battle against ourself, our own evil wolf. Now we're fully aware that being a mature individual means taking 100% of the responsibility for our own actions. In other words, we don't point out how others were doing worse things or how our behavior may have been acceptable at certain times and situations. No, we take full responsibility for deciding to act in the ways that we do. We aren't under the influence of others. We have assumed self-authority. Being responsible means realizing that we can't possibly know it all and that things will always change. So we aren't afraid to learn. Learning can often involve trial and error. So when we assume self-authority, we know that losing will be inevitable. Losing is unavoidable. At some point, we will be wrong about something. But by the same token, winning is also inevitable and unavoidable. At some point, as long as we keep trying, we will be successful on some level. Knowing that we will eventually suffer losses as well as victories makes it easier to have patience with ourselves and, as an extension, everyone else we deal with. Now, many of these techniques won't help much when you're dealing with situations beyond your control that stop you from following your sacred dream, or others who force their will on you by wasting your time and energy. These are primarily external forces. People dealing with debilitating illnesses, loved ones with toxic narcissism, those living in war-torn countries or under tyrannical leaders with extreme poverty and other such circumstances are dealing with primarily external causes of depression. I'll discuss that in another episode.
I hope this episode has helped you to better understand depression that comes from within. And, if applicable, to start your path to happiness, health, harmony, humor, and hope. Thank you for watching Native Strength. Way